We are back. Let's get up and go around some of the headlines from the sports world this weekend. Jazz point guard Mike Conley departed the bubble yesterday to go to Columbus for the birth of his son. The Jazz take on the Nuggets today, 1:30 Eastern on ESPN, Game 1 of their opening round playoff series. Conley says he does plan to come back, but of course there's quarantine issues and all of that. Then to hockey, Joe Pavelski, a hat trick, including a game-tying goal with under 15 seconds left in the third. Stars overtime win over the Flames. Pavelski, the first player in Stanley Cup playoff history to score 3 career game-tying goals in the last minute of regulation. And then this news in just this morning, the Washington football team has hired a new team president, and it's a history-making hire. Jason Wright, who spent 7 years in the league as a running back, is now the first black president of an NFL team, replacing Bruce Allen.
It's personal, an opportunity to bring together my two worlds in a really unique way at a really unique time. And the fact that I happen to be black and the most qualified person for this is a boost. It's a culture transformation first, to make sure that we have an organization that people want to be a part of, and that itself will start to expand the value of the franchise and make the good things happen.
Wright retired from the NFL after the 2010 season, went to business school at the University of Chicago. He's been a partner for the global strategy firm McKinsey & Company. He's 38 years old, only the 4th former player to ascend to the role of team president. He'll be responsible for leading the organization's business divisions, including operations, finance, sales, and marketing. It is a new day in Washington. And it's a new day for me, too. Coming up at noon Eastern today, coast to coast, I will be back, and I will be live on ESPN Radio. The show is simulcast on ESPN News, and I'll just tell you it's going to be fantastic. And so is Max's show. He follows me every day. I'll do Get Up and then radio. Max will do First Take, and then he'll do radio from 2 to 4 Eastern time. And then our new afternoon team is Shanae and Mike Golick Jr., who will be terrific with all the, I've heard them talk. I've heard they're started to work. Their energy is extraordinary. It's a new day for ESPN Radio, and we hope that you will enjoy it and come along for the ride. All right, here's our top story of the day. Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields has created a petition requesting the Big Ten Conference immediately reinstate the 2020 football season. Fields spoke moments ago on our brand new morning radio show, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Here's what he said.
My biggest message to them would just to get them to realize how bad our players want to play, and just the guys that have come back for their 5th year, 6th year, come back off of injury. I think that we owe it to those guys the most. I've just seen behind the scenes and all the work that they put in and how much they really care about it. And I also believe all the coaches and all the parents, players want us to play, and they all feel safe with the guidelines Ohio State has set. So I just think that's the biggest message I'd like to get out to them.
You know, it's a remarkable set of circumstances. The football crew joins me here this morning. I've got Tim Hasselbeck and Mike Tannenbaum and Dan Graziano and Paul Feinbaum, who's been with us already. Let me just come to you now that we hear Justin Fields directly. We opened the show this morning talking about this. You described it as a public relations nightmare, if you will, for the Big Ten. Is it any more than that? Do you think there will be further repercussions than just what appears to be a bad look with the players and the families this publicly unhappy?
Mike, I don't think it's going to change anything, but Justin Fields is an extraordinary spokesman for that league, and I think other players are going to lean on him, and you will hear more people stand up and be heard. But in the end, I don't think it can undo a presidential decision. It creates issues. It creates public relations nightmare. But I think a week from now, the Big Ten will still be dark in terms of playing college football.
Mike Tannenbaum, I know you've been talking to a lot of people. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, this is going to hurt the Big Ten on 3 different levels. One, the A players are just not going to play. Justin Fields, they're going to go to the pro football. The B players, anybody that has a chance of playing right now in the NFL next year, it's the wild, wild west. They're thinking about transferring to those other 3 conferences. So those B players that the Big Ten was hoping to hold on to, they're going to be gone. And then really, maybe most transformationally, is recruiting. They're going to get obliterated. We know that the ACC, the SEC are going to be opportunistic. And as it relates to recruiting for next year, look for the Big Ten to start these programs literally over with middle of the road at best recruiting classes, because their competition will be on TV every week this fall.
Tim Hasselbeck, if you're a player in that conference right now, and you're one who is in that area, not locked in to be a first-round pick, but someone who has a chance to prove yourself a little bit, what do you think you're thinking right now? What do you think you would be doing right now?
Well, I think that if I were, projected to be anything other than, a fourth rounder earlier, then I think that I would play. So, whether it was spring or whether it was, trying to find some scenario where I would do that. But I think this is kind of unique in the sense that, the conference was never waiting for Justin Fields' opinion on this or the parents of these players, their opinion on this. They made a decision and that ship has sailed. And so, I think, we're often critical of college football sometimes for chasing the money. They clearly are not doing that here. They've canceled this in the name of player safety. And you can't go back on that at this point. There's nothing that's going to happen that's going to change that. And so while Fields can say that he wants to play, to me, that's the least surprising thing I've expected to hear during this entire stretch is that players were going to want to play. So, look, I think that Mike brings up a lot of good points. It certainly could create, some form of imbalance. I think there'll be players that will think it's wise to sit out. Some of them won't make the right decision. I think there'll be other players that have opportunities to maybe try to go play somewhere else or try to get a season in here or there. And those guys, they might be making the wrong decision. So it really is a mess, but I don't think it changes things one bit.
Paul, I'm asking you to guess at something which I know you hate to do, but why not? Would you guess that there is surprise in the offices of the Big Ten Conference that it has gotten to this place? That, yes, we knew the players would want to play, but would you guess they are surprised at the magnitude of this reaction?
Mike, I think they're shocked because they were basing it on science, and I think we found out over the last 5 months that sounds good in principle, but politically it may not work. They never considered the political side of this. And right now, everyone that has already talked is correct. It's not going to change anything, but the damage could be intense. The one thing I'm most concerned about, though, is it may give adrenaline to the other three conferences to move forward without being as careful as they need to be. I know that sounds like a major statement, but they feel it. If you're at the Big 12, the ACC, or the SEC, you're feeling like you are doing something great right now by playing college football, which may not be great at all, but the odds of any of those three backing down before we get closer to September 26 right now, I think, is very small because of the Big Ten's PR nightmare.
That's an interesting point. It could embolden others when you see, look, the families want to play, the players want to play. Graziano, let me come to you as my NFL insider. What impact does all of this have on the NFL from where you sit?
You talk to people around the NFL, they already are saying it's going to be the worst evaluated draft in league history because you're not going to maybe be able to see everybody play a 2020 season. They don't know if scouts are going to be allowed on campuses. You're not going to be able to spend the time with these prospects that you normally do. Obviously, this is secondary concern to all the concerns about player safety, and are the leagues doing it for science-related and health-related reasons? Obviously, that is far more important. But when you talk to people in the NFL just about how it affects next spring, all-star games, combine, draft, obviously significant impact whether they play spring seasons, whether some guys play in the fall, and of course what Mike and Tim were talking about, there's a widespread expectation around the league that pretty much anybody who has a chance to get drafted would opt out of playing a spring season, if not a fall season. So they're going to have a lot to sort through when they get to the draft next spring in the NFL.
All right, so we obviously are just sort of at the beginning of all of this. I am also very interested to hear what you think. I'd like to hear from you. I have my poll question up today. I just want to remind you, it's on Twitter, at ESPN Greeny. Cast your vote. There's a lot of votes up there. I'll check and see where it stands as of now, and we'll do this on radio this afternoon as well. Do you believe they should play this fall, based on what you know? Yes or no? Simple question, but the answer is not that easy. We'll get back to it as we continue. Meanwhile, to the NFL and 24-year-old superstar quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He's made 2 Pro Bowls. He's won an NFL, separates him from the competition. Here's his offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, with his thoughts on Mahomes.
Kudos to Pat. He's done a heck of a job. He's had a great career so far, but you guys have been around him. You know him. He's a competitive, okay? He's a great kid, but he's a competitive. He wants to improve at everything he possibly can improve upon. He wants to be the best at whatever he can do.
I mean, it's just kind of in our nature, I think, not even just me and EB's nature. We love to compete. We're fiery. We love to go out there every single rep. We act like it's the last rep that we have to win. And I think when you have a lot of guys on the team that are like that, it's when you get the best on Sunday. So I'm going to go out there and compete every single rep, and I'm going to have that fire every single time.
Well, I really liked that from Bieniemy. And Mike Tannenbaum, I thought you had a fascinating look. What was your first thought when you heard Bieniemy make those comments?
Oh, Greeny, we just saw the opening scene of episode 1 of The Last Dance in 2040 after Patrick Mahomes retires with his 8th title. That's exactly who Michael Jordan was. He was a competitive you-know-what. And Eric Bieniemy, who just retired as the Arizona coach, Cardinal head coach with 3 Super Bowl wins, he'll be talking about what it was like to coach him in 2019 and 2020.
I like that take. And that, look, the comparison of Mahomes to Jordan is an interesting one, if premature, because he certainly seems to have all of that stuff. But he strikes me, Tim Hasselbeck, as someone with a very different personality. At least that's what I thought. He comes off as much, I've never met him in my life, but he comes off as much more laid back rather than the Michael Jordan that we all sort of know. Are we getting a little different glimpse into Mahomes there in your mind?
Well, I think as you hear him talk more, you see him interact with people more, yeah, you get the sense that here's a guy who just signed a massive contract and there isn't any sense of, taking the foot off the gas. And I think that, listen, obviously the great players, I mean, typically, it's everybody, in the NFL, the NBA. I mean, look, you just had Vince Carter on. The guy played forever. Like, I'm sure he was a competitive you-know-what as well. Look, that's just the reality of, I think, getting to that level and then competing at that high level and then doing it for a long period of time. And I would even say that Mike Tannenbaum is a competitive you-know-what. Have you seen the smoothies he drinks in the morning? Like, you don't do that unless you're competitive.
What do you think, Graziano? What do you think of all this?
Well, having talked to teammates of Mahomes over the last couple of years, you hear a lot of stories about the way he practices, and I think that's what he was referring to in that last clip. And teammates say he'll pull out the trick throws and stuff like that to try and, win that particular rep or that particular team period. So it wasn't surprising to hear that from Eric Bieniemy. And, Patrick Mahomes grew up in a household where his father was a Major League Baseball pitcher. So he's been around that competitive atmosphere for a very long time. So I think he knows what he's doing. And I think, comparing him to Jordan, seems like his teammates feel a lot of warmth from him. Maybe that's a factor of the quarterback position. Maybe it's not an exact comparison, but definitely.